Hey, this is Trish, and I am in the kitchen today, and I wanted to show you how to make bone broth. It's a really popular thing going on right now. The thing is that bone broth is actually just like beef stock or pig stock or chicken stock, whatever you have on hand, and meaty marrow-filled bones, you can make this bone broth out of. Today I'm using oxtail, and so I just want to show you a little bit about the process because when I was sick, I was actually too sick to make me some bone broth, but now that I'm doing better, I'm making bone broth, and I wanted to just show you how to do it. So I hope you enjoy. Stick around. Okay, so I've already started the process because I just wanted to show you the midway point of the first part of this process of making bone broth. So let me turn the camera around. Here we go. And you will see all this yumminess right here. This is oxtail. You'll see those bone-filled marrow bits there in the center. And you'll also see parsnips. That's the white bits. You'll see carrots. I have onions. I have celery. I have some garlic over here. Not sure if you're seeing that in the camera. And what I'm doing is I'm roasting all of that. All I did was put on a little bit of salt and pepper and some extra virgin olive oil. I'm not a big fan of olive oil. I don't know what the big deal is personally. I don't like the taste. I'm from the South, you see, and we don't grow up eating olive oil because olives are not native here. We cook in lard. You know, lard grows here, right? No, I'm kidding. You know where lard comes from, right? Well, if you're a vegetarian, you don't want to eat that. But I have coconut oil. I didn't feel like melting coconut oil, so I just used some olive oil. So what that is that's the bones themselves. This is 2 pounds, actually it's about 3 pounds of oxtail. So you see it has really great layer of fat. It has a lot of meat on there, and then of course the marrow there in the middle of the bones. And a little salt and pepper, sea salt, of course, sea salt, I love that. Black pepper and olive oil, and you smoosh it all around and put it in an oven on 450 degrees Fahrenheit. No idea what that is in Celsius. Sorry to my friends in Australia. But 450 Fahrenheit, and let that cook for about 20 minutes, which I've just done, and then you're going to flip it, and that's what I'm about to do. I'm about to flip the meat over. I want to get the fat part of the meat. I want to get those on touching the bottom of the pan so they get really great, yummy, brown and juicy, roasty flavors and that are so very good. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to stir the vegetables up, and you'll notice I put a lot of veggies in there. That's because, and you'll find this if you do this, you get to this point when you pull it out after the second time, because I'm about to do it for another 20 minutes in the 450 degree oven. Those vegetables are so delicious that you start eating them, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, now I don't have enough for making the actual stock or the broth or whatever the next process is. And so I just make some extra so that I can eat them while I'm doing the other part of the bone broth. So, all right, so I'm going to flip these over, put them back in the oven for 20 minutes, and then we'll do the next step. Okay, so this sucker, I just pulled him out of the oven, and he looks gorgeous. Let me show you what he looks like, okay? So, do you see all of these brown bits? And you see this right here? Let me open up the tongs. You see all this gorgeousness in here? This is all flavor. You see that? All the way down here in the pan. Yummy, 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 yummy. Look at that brown. I think it's called the Maillard reaction or something like that. So, yeah. So, you see my beautiful garlic over here on the side. Oh, he's beautiful. So now the next step, and I'm going to have to put you down in order to do this, but the next step is I'm going to transfer all of this to my pot, and then I'll talk to you about the next step and the ingredients that go in. Okay, so do you hear that? You hear that sizzle? That's because I've got my pot already hot. This is a nice size stock pot. I wish I had a bigger one. So now I'm just adding in all the meat, so I'm just transferring it one at a time over here. Let it get a little bit extra brown on it. And then I'll start to move over some of the veggies. So you see this? This is a parsnip. Now, parsnips are root vegetables. And what you're looking for when you cook these things, if I can get this in the right angle, do you see all that? Do you see that? Isn't that gorgeous? You would not know how divine this tastes. So I'm going to leave him over to the side so I can eat him. Thank you very much. And then you can see the carrots. You see this gorgeous color on the carrots. Believe it or not, this is not ruined. This is perfect. So I've got carrots, I've got the onions, and I'm just moving everything over. You know, the cool thing is that carrots, this orange color, look at that. Okay, I'm going to put him to the side. I'm going to eat him. I should have gotten a plate. Anyway, yeah, so carrots are actually, this orange color is actually a modern hybridization. In medieval times, carrots were white. In fact, if you look at medieval paintings of farmers market, or you know, the center of town scenes, that kind of thing, where you have farmers selling their crops, carrots are white. So I'm going to put all of these in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep my garlic out. I'm going to take out a few of these cloves that are now roasted, and I'm going to put them in here as well. Okay, so here's what's happened now. This pot was so hot, I had to go ahead and put in the water. I wanted to show you the ingredients that are going in now, but the water really needed to go in because it was sizzling. Remember that sizzle you heard? The meat was cooking a little too hot and quickly, so I had to go ahead and put in the water. But let me show you what's happening. Here everything is bubbling away. Over here I have the apple cider vinegar. I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 tablespoons of black pepper, that's with the peppercorns. And normally I would do 2 bay leaves, but this is a big bay leaf. It's from across the street, so it's not store-bought. So these just, you know, grow wild. Actually, bay laurel is a protected tree here, and so this is what I'm going to use. And so I'm just going to put him in there. You see, I've already emptied out the garlic cloves. They got nice and toasty, roasty. And so, you know, put the garlic in there. It's a lot more mild. It's a much more smooth flavor than eating just the pungent flavor of raw garlic. And so yeah, for those of you who like my skull, here he is, he's right there, like my skull knife block. And in case you're wondering what this is, these are sweet potatoes that I have allowed to sprout, and I'm going to plant these because these guys will make absolutely gorgeous greenery out front by my front door. You just let your sweet potatoes go to sprouting like that, and then you can plant them, and maybe a few weeks after you plant them, suddenly it's like they grow 2 or 3 feet long overnight, and they have these most vibrant, bright green leaves you've ever seen, and they're gorgeous. So it's a really inexpensive way to have some nice plants and greenery out by your front door. So that's what I'm doing with that. And if you see my bananas over here, I can't stand bananas, but I eat one. I try to eat a banana every day, but I usually eat them when they're still just a little bit green because they taste the least banana-y at that point. But what I'm doing is I've allowed these bananas to kind of get ripe, really ripe, because I have read that the brown spots, like the more brown spots you have on the banana, there's a chemical change happening in the banana, and that chemical change, that chemical that's being produced is actually really good for the immune system. And so, of course, I can't think of what that is right now, but, you know, Google it and let me know what you find. So I'm letting these go. We call these giraffes, the giraffe bananas. You see that, how they're kind of brown? We call those giraffe bananas here in this house. And so you can see this is bubbling away. And so now this is just wait. Sit and wait, sit and wait, sit and wait. Smell all this gorgeous, gorgeous food. And this is actually going to cook for about 24 hours. Now, I don't have a crock pot, and I do not want to let this cook overnight. So I'm going to let this cook for about 7 hours, 8 hours. I'm going to let it cool for about an hour on the stove, and then I'll put it in the fridge. And then I'll resume cooking it tomorrow, because you want to cook this about 24 hours. Now the next step is actually in about 2 hours from now. I'm going to take the meat out, because the meat will be tender and falling off the bones at that point. And I'm going to eat it because I'll be hungry. And you can see over here, my kitchen's a little bit of a mess right now, but can you see my yummy, yummy food right there? You see that? All those gorgeous colors. Yes, yum, yum. And so those are going to be really delicious. I'm going to go ahead and eat those because I'm very, very hungry. And then we'll just keep cooking. So again, this is going to cook for a couple of hours, then I'll take the meat off the bone, but I'm going to leave all the fat. You want that fat because what we're doing with the bone broth is we're getting the collagen, and the fat is flavor. The bones are the collagen out of the marrow, the protein, and all those yummy brown vegetables. Flavor, yes, indeed, they're gonna be gorgeous and delicious. And this is the hard part, the waiting. But see, I was smart. I made extra vegetables, so I don't have to actually wait a long time. I can go ahead and eat some right now. All right, so I'm going to see if I can wait in a couple hours and show you what it looks like when you're pulling the meat off the bone, okay? All right, see you then. Bye. Okay, and so here I wanted to mention something really quickly, and that is a little bit of a controversy over the protein scum that rises to the top while you're cooking. And in case you've never seen that, here's what it looks like. You see that? It's this kind of frothy white protein scum that rises to the top. Now, some people say, oh, you absolutely have to get rid of it. Some people say it doesn't matter. I'm in the I don't care camp on this. I think that, you know, taking that pond scum off the top is really just because you know, fancy chef type people want to make broths or consommes that are really clear, and this pond scum, you know, whatever, the protein scum can cloud up your broth. Again, personally, I don't care. And since it is protein, the whole point of this is because I want the protein, I want the collagen. You know, protein it contains the, you know, amino acids, which are the building blocks of life, so why would I get rid of that? So I'm going to keep it. I'm just going to stir it. I have my handy dandy witchy spoon. I don't know if you see this. See my witchy, yes, 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 yes. My witchy apron. You see my witchy stuff. There's my little witchy up there. She keeps my kitchen safe for me. And so anyway, so all I'm going to do with that pond scum, I'm going to stir it right back in, and I'm going to keep doing that. But of course, if you want to get rid of it, you can. You may find that maybe it flavors the broth in a way you don't like, or maybe you just don't care either. Again, I'm in the I don't care camp, and I'm still not feeling well, so I really, really, really don't care, but I did want to mention it just in case you noticed it and you wanted to know what to do about that frothy mess on top of your bone broth. Okay, and so here we are on day 2 of the making bone broth, and I just want to show you what it looks like overnight, because what I did, again, because I don't want to keep this on the stove or even in the oven overnight, I had to reduce it so that I could put it in the fridge. Now what I did was I reduced it way down. Why? Because it cools off more quickly so that I could get it in the fridge so that I could, you know, get a little bit of sleep. So here's what it looks like. Can you see that? See that delicious layer of saturated fat there on the top? And yes, I am absolutely keeping that. That's not going anywhere. How dare you even suggest that you take that fat off? It's delicious. So there it is. Now watch what happens. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy spoon, and I'm just going to cut through this just so you can see. This is the broth. This is what the broth looks like overnight. Okay, and so all I did here was I just flipped this over, and you can see it really is like Jello. Of course, the word Jello comes from gelatin because you know, gelatin, collagen comes from the marrow of the bones. That's why a lot of vegetarians will not see. There's one of the bones right there, one of the oxtail bones. A lot of vegetarians will not eat Jello because it is derived from animal product, like right there. So they go toward plant sources of gelatin. So start to see some steam coming off the top there. Then what I'll do is I'll just add in some water and just get it going again. Okay, so while this is doing its bubble bubble toil and trouble thing over there behind me, you may be asking yourself, why would you even bother to go to all this trouble? Well, if you're like me and you can't or don't want to buy processed foods, you have to cook this way. You have to cook at home, or at least have a local source of food and or food helpers like broth that you can buy locally that you know is healthy for you. One of the reasons that I cannot stand to buy store-bought broth is because of the amount of sodium in it. Sometimes it has caramel coloring to make it a little more brown because they didn't roast the vegetables first. But the sodium is the big thing. I mean, in one serving, a serving is a cup. Let me show you what a cup looks like. Let me get my measuring cup out. This is 1 cup, one little bitty cup. It has like 960 milligrams of sodium. The problem with that is that the body only needs about 3 grams of sodium on a daily basis. So when you have even just 1 cup of soup or 1 cup of broth or 1 cup of stew or 1 cup of anything that's made with this store-bought stuff, I mean, you're using nearly 1/3 of your daily requirement for sodium, and on top of that, you can't source the sodium because they just say salt. What kind of salt? Was it iodized salt? Probably. I don't use iodized salt. I don't want, because it's a refined salt. I use sea salt. And so, 1 cup has 960 milligrams. It's nearly 1 gram of sodium. And so, when you want to cook with things, cook with the broth, like my daughter wants me to make shepherd's pie. I use broth for that. I want to make gumbo. I use broth for that. Chicken and dumplings. I use broth for that. You get the idea? Yeah. And so being able to do this kind of thing with my own broth that I can source every single ingredient. I know exactly what's in it. It just makes me feel better. And I don't know why these companies have to salt everything so much. Simply because, well, aside from the fact that Americans are now so accustomed to salt, but broth is supposed to be a starting point. It's a foundation to a dish. It's not the dish itself, but I think a lot of people use store-bought broth. They just maybe add the water to it, or like a bouillon cube or some of those concentrated broths. Mix or stuff. I'm still sick, I can't think. But they add water to it and they just heat it up in the microwave and they eat it like that as soup. That's not what broth is supposed to be. Broth is a foundation that you then add other flavors and layers to. But I think that's why they add so much sodium, is that people just try and use it as soup itself. And that is not what it's supposed to be. So anyway, I just wanted to talk. You see that back there? It's getting ready. So I've got to go add the water, so hold on. Alright, so there we go. You can see it's bubbling. It has come back and it smells absolutely divine. You can smell the roasted vegetables. You can smell the peppercorns. You can smell the sharpness of the Worcestershire sauce and the apple cider vinegar. You can even smell the different vegetables, the carrots, the parsnips. You even get some celery in there. It's absolutely wonderful. So now all I'm going to do is wait for this to bubble. Toilet in trouble once again. So let me put the top on and he'll get to cooking and we'll be back. Okay, so I added a little more water. That measuring cup that I just put in there, that's 8 cups. I've added another 4 and I'll add another 4 and I'll just keep adding and topping this off. The goal here is to get at least, I'm trying to get at least 3 or 4 quarts of bone broth out of this. The whole idea behind the paleo trend with bone broth is that you drink a cup of it every day because you want the collagen, you want the protein, and you want all the other great little vitamins and minerals that have seeped into the bone broth through the cooking process. And so, I'm going to have to do this again. The first thing I need to get a crock pot, and I've been sourcing 8-quart crock pots because I need to try and get a lot of bone broth. When you go to this much effort, yeah, you want to get as much as you can. Now, honestly, if I had a crock pot, this would be a lot simpler. All you would do is just roast the vegetables like I showed you, and then you put it in a crock pot and you let it cook overnight, 24 hours, up to 48 hours even, and that would be your bone broth and you'd be done. But because I don't have it, I have to do this, and because I know a lot of men out there who want to try and be healthy, but they don't have a crock pot either. So we're in the same boat. So That's why I'm showing you how to do this. But a crock pot would make it a lot easier. But until then, we're doing it stovetop. So it's going now. It's going to get up to the boil. I'm going to just keep doing that process of adding water, let it reduce, adding water, let it reduce, adding water, let it reduce. Because every time you reduce it, you're concentrating the flavor. And so that's what I want. I want some really, really delicious, nutrient-filled broth by the time we're done with this at about midnight tonight. So I'm going to check on this, and then I will check back in later. Okay, so this stuff is finally done, and let me show you what I did and try and explain it as I go along, because basically what I did was, like I said, I reduced it down just to make it easier for me to strain it, and then I have put it in jars. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so there is the bone broth. You can see all the jars of bone broth that I have. Basically what I did was I first had to strain this stuff. And I started that by taking out all of the vegetables. Look at that. I mean, you can see these vegetables are plain spent. There is nothing left to these guys, although technically you could still eat them. A little bit of fat and stuff right there. There's a little bit of meat in here. You could eat that if you wanted to. But the fat, of course, if you have a dog or a cat, they would love all of this. You just want to double make sure that there are no peppercorns. Although the peppercorns really are kind of soft at this point, just make sure there are no peppercorns in there. And of course, you want to make sure there are no bone shards, because here are the bones. Now the bones, as you can see, these bones are spent too. I mean, even the meat that was on there, it is fallen off. The little bits when you pluck off the meat, a little celery, and you can just tell these bones, they're pretty much done. But again, you can give these to your animals too, but again, just be careful. Like, I would not give this kind of piece, I would not give this to my dog. It's too small, especially a big dog, because they tend to not chew, they just swallow their food. They just wolf it down. And but yeah, just looking around, I mean, these bones are just about done. So you're going to see these bone end caps. They look like little kneecaps that come off the ends of the bones. So just be careful if you want to give these to your dog. Just be careful. I would give them the actual vertebrae, the bones themselves, and not these little extra patella-looking bits right there. So yeah, so these are all spent. So let me close up the tongs. Basically what I did was I reduced it down, like I said, and then I put it into a clean pot, and then I added water to fill it up to the line. And filling it up to the line, then I just stirred it together to incorporate the broth. This was after I strained it. And then I used a funnel to help put the bone broth into the jars. I was hoping to get several quarts, and I did, as you can see. These are quart mason jars here. This is almost a quart. I think maybe it is a quart, but it's almost a quart for sure. And then these are spaghetti jars back here, and then these are my coconut oil jars. So I saved my jars and try to recycle them in the hopes of doing some canning and that type of thing. So yeah, so as you can see there's some fat, saturated fat, that's kind of rising up here to the top. It's late, sorry. Brain is tired, and the fat is rising to the top, and you see there's not a whole lot of fat. I did not defat this. So considering we started with olive oil, and we have all this fat you can see that's left over, there actually is not going to be a lot of fat in this bone broth, but the fat that is there, it's going to taste awesome. So now what I'm doing, you can see I have the tops off. The tops are waiting. I'm letting these cool here. And then they will, once they're a little bit cooler, then I'll put the tops on, and I will put them in the fridge, and I will put them in the freezer. Now you see these little jars here. These are my coconut oil jars right here. These are about 2 cups. So the reason why I did these is because I know when I'm cooking, this is 2 cups. So if I'm only doing a small amount of soup, let's say, for my daughter and me, this is 2 cups, and all I do is I'll just pour that in and use it. The quarts then are, of course, a quart each, and I will use those when I'm making larger amounts of a dish, like like a gumbo, a soup, an Irish stew, of course. That's what my daughter really wants. She wants shepherd's pie, and she wants Irish stew. So there you go. So this, of course, you can throw all of this out. The vegetables are done. The bones you can give to your dog, not the end caps. And then just these are cooling off. And then I will jar these. Let me show you what this looks like. Let me just show you this. That is absolutely gorgeous color. And you may notice some sediment after it's had time to sit. But this has been sitting here for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And it's still gorgeous. And it is done. The tops are on the jars and they're ready to go in the fridge and the freezer. Now I swear this is not a difficult process. It's just a long process, and it's made a little bit longer because, again, I don't have a crock pot. I'm doing this on the stove. But it's really just roast the meat and vegetables, boil that sucker for 24 hours, strain it, bottle it, jar it, and that's really all there is to it. I swear. Again, it just seems like a long process. Well, it is a long process, but it's not hard. You can see my guys right there on the counter. You see them? Gorgeous, looking fabulous. And so some of these I will put in the fridge. The mason jars, the quart jars, I think I'll go ahead and put those in the freezer. I know they can go in the freezer. Now, if you actually have the tools and the equipment to do canning, you should absolutely, do these in a proper canning method so that they can last a lot longer. But I know this is going to go really quickly here. And then, too, it's like, okay, well, that's a lot of work for something that's only going to last a week or maybe 2 weeks at the most. But I am comforted in the fact that I know exactly what's in it. I know how it was prepared. I know there's not too much salt. I know that the ingredients are good. And I know, most of all, I know it's made with love. And so that really is one of the most important things for me. So I am going to go because this whole entire video, I'm sure is going to be 20-25 minutes. But I hope that it's helped you. And if you make your own bone broth, please leave a message down below so that I can hear how it happened, how it went for you, because you might have some tips that'll help me and that'll help everybody else. So, all right, long day. I am ending this, and I love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.